Hi, my name is Kurt Mantheiy. I'm an entertainment lawyer based out of Dallas, Texas. And today I wanted to talk to you about how exactly you use a split sheet. So the first thing you're going to want to do is you're going to want to go to the description below and print out a copy of the split sheet template that I have available for free on my website, mantheiylaw.com. Many of you may be familiar with the concept of a split sheet. You may have used them before. I've been involved in some pretty serious disputes regarding song ownership and credit. It's threatened to blow up some very significant deals in the past. And so with the split sheets that I give to my artists and writers, it includes a lot more than your standard split sheet. It's really a short contract, as all split sheets are. And so without further ado, let's get into it. So we see on the first page, we've just got the basics. Let's talk about what's the title of the song, when was it recorded, who's the main artist, who's the feature artist, just so we all know we're talking about the same song. The next part gets a little more complicated. We get into samples. You want to make note of what samples were used and what samples are already cleared. Clearing samples is important. As you may know, you can't just lift a piece of music and sell it commercially on your record. You're going to need to get clearance. It's probably going to cost you money. And if you're not sure you're going to be able to get clearance, you're going to need to make other arrangements, maybe substitute in other sounds. And so it's nice to get that on the split sheet so that everybody's on the same page and everybody knows, hey, there might be a problem before we release this song, let's address it. And then we get to the writers, which is where we just want to get all the information. And this may look like a lot of information, but really, this is what you need to register the song with the performing rights organization. I know it looks scary, but you are going to need your social security number or an EIN if you've incorporated to get that credit on ASCAP, BMI, CSAC. So that's on there for all the writers so that when the song goes to get registered, there's no mix-ups, because that can delay people getting paid, even just as simply as spelling a name wrong, and so the wrong writer gets credited. And then we get into the fancy stuff on the second page. And this is where I tell my songwriter clients, I say, fill out as much of this page as you want. You can get as deep into this as you want to, or you can just touch the surface. The biggest thing and what makes it a split sheet is the percentages. So you really need to be discussing who's getting what percentage. There's a million different ways to do this. I know some bands that I work with, they just say, you know what, we're a band, so we split it evenly. So if there's 4 members in the band, everybody gets 25% on all the songs. And that's, the guitar player may write the majority of one song, the bass player may write a majority of another song, but they just decide democratically through agreement that they're just going to split it that way, and that's fine. Another way to do it is just by the amount of work you've done on it, of course. So if you're in the studio with another writer and, he writes the music and you write the lyrics and vocal melody, you may decide, hey, let's just split this up 50-50. But yeah, as you can see, this can get complicated, because what if you write the lyrics, the vocal melody, and half the music? Do you get 75%, 25%? How's this going to work? And so that's where you really need to hash it out in the studio. Keep these in the studio with you and just work it out. And then we get into some more ancillary stuff that ends up being very important. Things like fees. You guys may be splitting credit on this song, but there may be fees associated. One of you may be engineering the session, one of you may be producing the session, while the other's not. And so what fee is owed to another writer for their contribution to their sense? It's nice to have that in writing as well. Now, publicity rights. So let's say there's 4 writers on a song, but the song is only intended to go on one person's record. So you want to have in writing who's got the rights to release that song, who has the rights to attach their name to that song, to decide when that song is going to come out, to decide how that song is going to come out. Because absent an agreement to the contrary, when there's multiple writers, you're going to be joint authors. It's going to become a joint composition. And as long as everybody gets paid, any writer could just put that song out on their own record. And obviously that would completely torpedo any release plans that a certain artist had. And so it's just nice to just discuss these things. It may seem intuitive, it may seem stupid, but you'd be surprised how often it comes up. And it'll come up when you least suspect it. You'll be a writer working on a song with 4 other guys, and everybody may think in their head, they may really know that, hey, this song's supposed to go on this guy's record, but the song may turn out better than expected. It may be more attractive than people realized it would be, and so they're like, I want this song for myself. And absent in agreements to the contrary, such as this, they could do that. They could snipe that song and put it on their own record. Credits is another one that's important because it causes some stupid fights. This is, again, one I've seen more times than I would like to admit, but it's important to talk about in the promotional materials, in the liner notes. How is credit going to be given? Whose name is going to come first? How big is their name going to be in relation to other writers or other performers? And it's funny because it seems like a small thing, but it can turn into a big deal. Now, the applicable law, when you're writing a contract, when you're drafting a contract, the parties are free to make any bargain they choose. So you can choose a different state's law to govern your agreement if you want to. Otherwise, I would probably just default to the state that you're in. So, for instance, if I'm writing a song, I'm going to say that Texas law will, apply to any disputes that we have, and will apply to any interpretation of this contract. And of course, this is again where having a good entertainment lawyer can come in handy, because there are reasons you would list other states there that we won't get into. The approval of the final mix. Again, this comes up especially when you have different writers and different artists even on the same song. And this is just a practical consideration in that you want this song to eventually come out, right? And so you kind of need someone who can have approval of that final mix, because what if one artist says, well, my vocals aren't loud enough, and another says, well, my guitar's not loud enough, and so you've got your mix engineer like, I don't know. So it can be nice in the writing stage to just say, hey, we're going to give approval of the final mix to our manager, we're going to give it to the label, we're going to give it to the leader of the band, or you can choose a person, but it can be nice just to choose someone to where if there does become a deadlock, you can break it this way. And next we get into things such as transfer of copyright or work for hire. And this is a little more specialist. I wouldn't really mess with this if you don't know what you're doing. Same thing with third-party rights. Especially when you're working with artists who are on big labels. There can be a lot of interested parties who have certain rights and, can own certain percentages of things. And it can be nice to spell that out in the contract. Again, you should know what you're doing if you're doing this. Warranties and indemnifications. This is, again, especially if you're dealing with larger labels or large management groups. One of the writers or producers on the track may want some form of protection in case, say, an unused sample or uncleared sample is used on the track, or something else goes wrong. They don't want to get caught up in a lawsuit. And again, this comes up when there's a lot of money at play, when there's big players in the industry involved in a song. Those are more ripe for lawsuits. And so, if you are the producer or you are just a minor writer on a song, it sometimes doesn't hurt to ask for something like that. And then the third page it's very simple. It's the signatures. It's simple, but it's important because we're turning this split sheet into a contract and you got to sign it. And so there it is. It's a template. It's a form. It's something to get you started with. Again, I tell my clients just to keep a handful of these in the studio, work on them as you're writing. Again, it's not the substitute for a lawyer. On larger projects, it's not uncommon for me to get called in, even during the writing process, to negotiate with, say, another lawyer or someone's management. But even in those cases, and I would almost say especially in those cases, especially when I get called in later, it's nice to have this done, because I've seen some very bad scenarios where I'll get called into a situation, I'll get hired, and there won't really be much I can do. Unfortunately, it'll be a song that's already been released. It'll be a contract that's already been signed, or it's been, rights have already been given. And so you want to stay on top of this stuff early to give yourself options, to give someone like me something to work with. So, again, let's take a scenario where you had filled out this sheet. Let's say you're writing with a major artist and they just put out a single, it's on the radio, it's doing well. And suddenly, you check it out and something's not right. You're only getting 25%. You open the album up and you're not credited anywhere in there. If you have this and this is signed and it says, hey, on this song titled this by this artist, actually, we agreed that I'm getting this percentage, this amount of fees, I'm going to be credited this way. And suddenly there's a lot more that we can do. And so this is just a little thing that can protect you. I know it sucks. I write music myself, so I know it sucks to kind of have to break up a session to talk business, but at the same time, it doesn't hurt your relationships. It doesn't. I mean, if anything, I think it helps, because everybody knows that everything is on the up and up. No one is going to get screwed over. And it just allows you to move forward with that peace of mind. So, again, I hope I've explained this a little better. To some of you who do this every day, this may seem a little simple, but there's a lot of artists who maybe haven't done this before and need to start. And so if you have any questions, of course, feel free to email me. Feel free to call me. I offer free 30-minute consultation.